Hello, my name is Jack Rhino, and I'd like to thank you for joining Winery Biz 101, where today we'll be talking about 3 steps to direct-to-consumer sales. Below are several metrics from a winery I ran a few years ago. While I don't think the winery is perfect, these metrics provide a starting point for discussion. I'd suggest you compare these to your metrics at your winery to see where you might benefit. Now, in this winery, we generated 25,000 cases in sales a year. Of that, 99.95% of it was direct to consumer. We'd see between 60 and 70,000 visitors a year, and each of those visitors would spend between $50 and $70 on wine. Again, of those 60 to 70,000 visitors, we'd convert 5 to 7% of those into club members. So after a number of years, that winery actually had a wine club between 11 and 13,000 club members. Each of those club members spending $450 to $550 in wine each year. That resulted in total revenue for the winery between $11 and $12 million. Let's start by defining direct-to-consumer sales. These include sales from the tasting room, club memberships, email blast, telemarketing, internet, social media, and mobile. Texting blasts, for example. The second important consideration is that distribution sales differ from direct consumer sales in several important ways. From a marketing point of view, a brand that's being distributed is trying to send the message of why a consumer should buy XYZ brand. While in direct-to-consumer business, marketing message is really why people want to visit the winery, what sets that winery apart. The products in distribution are typically a 1 or 2 driver products, those products that are the reputation of the winery. While in direct-to-consumer, it's what are the benefits of being part of the winery, developing a relationship. And in selling itself, through distribution sales, you're actually selling through gatekeepers. The winery sells to a wholesaler who turns around, sells to a retailer or a restaurant who then turns to a consumer. So the winery really isn't communicating directly with the end user. On the direct consumer side of the business, however, it's personal selling. You're selling wine to the people that intend to drink the wine. Now, this is one of my favorite slides, and there's several important factors here. The first I've got labeled number 1, prospecting. And these are the activities targeting people in the area and getting those people to visit the winery. Not only getting them to visit, but getting the right people to visit the winery. Once you've got the right people or people to visit the winery, the next step is actually your sales presentation. And that's the process of converting tasting room visitors into customers. Now, at the bottom of that funnel, you really have a why. One goes off to the side I've represented as no sale in red. The other goes off to the right that I've designated as a wine sale. Now, that's great. You've sold that particular customer some wine, but there's a further why after that. One goes into red, where I'm calling or labeling that customer a ghost. That's a customer who comes to the winery, buys wine, but leaves, and there's no way to contact that customer again. So while you've sold that customer wine, I would say that that customer is only marginally better than the no sale customer. If you've got the contact information, that opens the whole concept of relationship sales. And that's a number of processes that we'll talk about in a minute that actually are going out to that customer that's purchased wine. We have the contact information, and we're looking to sell wine to them again. Starting back on the first funnel with prospecting, location of the tasting room is the single most influential factor in bringing prospects to the winery. But not everyone has the beachfront property, And so there are a number of other activities that can be utilized to bring people to the winery. And they're all essentially word of mouth or word of mouth derivatives. You could have press and reviews. Great reviews of your wine will drive people to your tasting room. You could work on developing some hospitality relationships, working with hotels, bed and breakfasts, resorts, restaurants. There's also some electronic prospecting, things like Twitter search, Foursquare, and even mobile marketing. Again, once you've gotten people to your tasting room, what happens? If you don't engage the visitor, they'll be lost. They'll come in and walk out, and you won't sell them anything, and they won't have anything good to say to other people about your winery. I'm frequently struck by how little effort is put forth when someone walks into the door of a tasting room. And to me, it's really a function of the sales process, which is a structured process of actually bringing people in and selling them product. And it's no different than any other sales process. The first step is to welcome some sort of icebreaker to the customer as they walk in the door, to qualify the buyer in terms of what types of wine they like, where they're from, so you know if you need to ship wine. And third, actually make a sales presentation. So often, wineries or people behind the tasting bar are just talking about the statistics of the wine, what the alcohol is, what the TA is, etc., etc. And what people really want is a story. They want to know about the owner. They want to know about the history of winery. And so that's your opportunity to shine. Once the presentation's made, which includes tasting of several wines, the tasting room salespeople need to ask for the sale, address any objections the customer might have, and then close the sale. Now, when I look at a sales presentation at a tasting room, I think there's actually 4 closes within each presentation. Some of them are more difficult than others, but they include things like collecting for the tasting fee, to gather contact information. You need that contact information to sell them wine and to sell them club memberships. Relationship sales make or break direct-to-consumer programs. Without repeat and or recurring sales, sales max out due to the number of parking spots at the winery or the numbers of Saturdays or Sundays in each month. Relationship sales are the follow-up sales once a relationship has been made at the winery. All of them depend on contact information, which has to be one of the most important of the 4 closes in the sales presentation. But these relationship sales will include things like club member shipments, telemarketing sales, email, website, social media, and mobile marketing. So these are the 3 steps to direct-to-consumer success. The first is prospecting, is generating visitor count to the tasting room. Second is a sales presentation, which includes the 4 closes. And third is relationship sales, getting those repeat sales. And again, these are what separate the men from the boys. If you excel in these 3 steps, you'll be well on your way to successful direct-to-consumer wine sales.